but I expected them to be more muscular and intimidating, and most were just used for comic relief.
Just what you've been waiting for. Movies, TV, music, and more. Follow, subscribe, stay up to date. Episodes drop every other Monday. It's the Matt, watch that. It's the Matt, watch that. It's the Matt, watch that podcast.
Welcome everybody to the Matt Watch That podcast, the place for reviews, rants, and randomness. I'm your host, Matt Seroski, filmmaker, film fan. Each episode, I'm going to watch a movie or TV pilot that I probably should have seen but never got around to. It could be a recent favorite, critic's choice, or cult classic. To join in on the conversation, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, at Matt Seroski. You can subscribe to my YouTube page where I'll post videos and clips from the show. If you have any opinions on what I've discussed, or suggestions as to what I should see next, use the hashtag MattWatchThat on social. Before we start, we're talking about video games on this episode, which is apropos based on the movie I'm reviewing. I wouldn't consider myself a gamer, but it's fun to wind down by playing MLB The Show, then throwing the remote across the room after swinging at a pitch 10 inches out of the zone. Sounds like the Mets' approach to hitting. But the 90s were an incredible time for arcade games, and I would go to the bowling alley and spend my quarters on the consoles they had there. So I'm going to give you my top 5 favorite games from that era. We'll begin with NBA Jam, which could have been the best game to play against your friends. It was over the top and ripe for trash talking. It featured 2-on-2 gameplay with little rules, so flying elbows and shoving were commonplace. There were exaggerated dunks, and if your player made 3 baskets in a row, you were in on-fire mode, where your player was engulfed in flames until the other team scored. It included the rosters from the 1992-93 season, and the top 2 players from each team were available to select. Then you had Street Fighter II and Mortal Kombat 2. I was not big on the fighting games. They were similar in concept. You choose a character and face off against another player or the computer, and the winner of 2 out of 3 falls would advance to the next character. I could never remember all the fighting combinations, but I got pretty adept with Sub-Zero. He had cryokinesis and could generate ice patches, causing the opponents to slip and stumble, and throw ice shards that momentarily froze your opponent. There was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. You chose one of the 4 Italian Renaissance artists named Turtles. My favorite was Michelangelo, which was the Americanized version of his name, and his weapons, the dual nunchucks. Under the direction of Shredder, Cyborg Krang steals the Statue of Liberty, and our heroes in a half-shell must dispose of the foot soldiers through a series of locations in New York City until a final confrontation with Shredder. Last season on the Matt Forgot That podcast, I rewatched The Simpsons pilot and have since seen multiple episodes. While I didn't keep up with the show when I was younger, I did play the arcade game ad nauseum. It's a side-scrolling game where Smithers has kidnapped Maggie, and the remaining family members must defeat Mr. Burns' hired guns to bring her home safe and sound. Like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the graphics made it feel like the cartoons had come to life. And last but not least, it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that my favorite game was WWF WrestleFest. There were 2 modes to choose, a single-player Royal Rumble, where you have to eliminate all of your opponents from the ring to be the last man standing, and a tag team tournament, where you choose your partner and face off against other pairs in a series of matches, leading to a final battle with the Legion of Doom. Each wrestler had their own signature moves, including their personalized finisher. So what were some of your favorite arcade games? Hit me up on social using the hashtag MattWatchThat. On to the main attraction. Each review will end with a ranking out of 5 stars. 1 star is skip it, 2 stars watch at your own risk, 3 stars standard fare, 4 stars worth checking out, and 5 stars must see. Now, if I give a title 5 stars, it doesn't mean I'm comparing it to Casablanca, Jaws, or Seinfeld. I rank titles based on other movies or TV series in that genre and at that time period. On this episode of the podcast, I'll be reviewing Street Fighter from 1994. It was directed and written by Stephen E. D'Souza, who helmed episodes of horror series Tales from the Crypt and Unknown Sender, and scribed action comedy 48 Hours, Schwarzenegger thrillers Commando and The Running Man, perennial Christmas classic Die Hard, and dystopian flick Judge Dredd. It was based on the Capcom video game Street Fighter II, released to arcades in 1991, and rolled out on consoles the following year. It became one of the biggest selling games and is estimated to have been played by 25 million people in the United States alone. It stars Jean-Claude Van Damme as Colonel William F. Guile. The Muscles from Brussels started training in martial arts at the age of 10, and in 1975 earned a spot on the Belgian karate team. Over the next 4 years, he compiled a record of 44-4 in semi-contact matches and won the European Karate Championship. He began a full-contact career and recorded 18 victories with 18 knockouts and 1 defeat. He retired from active competition in 1982 and opened a gym to earn money before moving to the United States. He appeared as an extra in the Cannon film Breakin'. He developed a friendship with Chuck Norris and was part of the stunt crew for Missing in Action. He was cast in Bloodsport, which earned $50 million on a $2 million budget, catapulting Van Damme into stardom. Over the next decade, he became an in-demand action star in Cyborg, Kickboxer, Lionheart, Death Warrant, Double Impact, Universal Soldier, Hard Target, Time Cop, Sudden Death, and Double Team. His films have grossed over $1 billion worldwide. Raul Julia plays General M. Bison. He was born in Floral Park, San Juan, Puerto Rico. Inspired by Errol Flynn's performance in The Adventures of Robin Hood, he decided to pursue a career in acting. While in college, he organized plays of Julius Caesar, Hamlet, King Lear, and The Tempest. After a rousing performance, he was approached by comedian and actor Orson Bean, who encouraged him to travel to New York. He took lessons with Wynn Handman and was classmates with Christopher Walken. He soon landed roles in productions of Life is a Dream and Bye Bye Birdie. He was cast in the television series Love of My Life, only appearing in a few episodes, and Sesame Street as Raphael, who worked at the Fix-It shop. He would transition to the big screen in 1971, with roles in The Panic in the Needle and The Organization. He would spend his career bouncing between television, movies, and the theater. In the latter part of his career, he was best known as Gomez Addams in the movie adaptation of The Addams Family. He accepted the role of General M. Bison because his children were fans of the video game. He was terminally ill at the time with stomach cancer, and the film is dedicated to his memory. Street Fighter also features Ming-Na Wen, Damian Chapa, Kylie Minogue, Byron Mann, and Roshan Seth. This is something to look out for. There's a post-end credits scene which was added to the home video release of the film. So let's jump into it. Chun-Li Zhang from GNT News reports on the civil war in the East Asian city of Chandalu, where the capital has just fallen despite the best efforts of the Allied nation forces. General M. Bison is a power-hungry dictator whose drug money has been used to equip his army with high-tech weaponry, equaling anything in the industrialized world. In the last 24 hours, he's seized 63 Allied nation relief workers, holding them at an undisclosed location. Allied nation's Colonel William F. Guile arrives on a tank and is asked for an interview, but he uses the opportunity to call out the dictator. Bison patches into the GNT News signal and gives Guile an ultimatum. He has 3 days to deliver a $20 billion ransom, otherwise the hostages will die. Here's a quote without context. "All I want to do is rule the world. Is that so much to ask?" Street Fighter had the unenviable task of taking a popular video game and transitioning it to the big screen. It was released over a year after the first attempted adaptation of a game, Super Mario Bros., which was a critical and commercial failure. There was some criticism that the movie wasn't faithful to the source material, but what were fans expecting? It's a side-scrolling video game. Is that how they imagined the director to shoot it? Was it going to be 90 minutes of two people fighting? Of course not. Now, it did take some liberties when it comes to the backstories of the characters, but I don't know anyone who played Street Fighter because of the characters' histories. No, they want to see Zangief pile drive someone through the ground. In the beginning of the film, over the credits, there was a news report which established the events of the movie, so the audience can jump right into the action. Normally, when this is done with a voiceover, I'm not a fan of this type of blatant exposition, but it was done well enough, and the imagery kept you interested. I'm a little disappointed in the casting of the supporting characters. If you know the game, it was fairly obvious who they were supposed to be portraying, even if they didn't don their signature gear. But I expected them to be more muscular and intimidating, and most were just used for comic relief. The dialogue is cringy in places, and the line deliveries by some actors who shall remain nameless because they could kick my butt is very stiff. But no one should be expecting Shakespeare when watching this movie. Though Raul Julia is formidable as Bison, and he doesn't play the character as over-the-top maniacal, he's a calm antagonist, which projects an air of menace. Now for a little trivial trivia. The gold Buddha statue in Sagat's business parlor is the same one which appears in the background of his battle screen in the video game. There are several nods like this, so keep your eyes peeled. Street Fighter was produced by Capcom Co. and distributed by Universal Pictures in North America and Columbia Pictures for international territories. It was filmed on the Gold Coast of Queensland, Australia, with interiors at Village Roadshow Studios. Some exterior shots were captured at Bangkok, Thailand, which doubled as Chandelou City. The cinematography was captured by William A. Fraker, whose filmography includes psychological horror, Rosemary's Baby, crime drama Bullet, action comedy Gator, and western Tombstone. He was nominated for Best Cinematography of Looking for Mr. Goodbar, Heaven Can Wait, 1941, War Games, and Murphy's Romance. He also received a nod for Best Effects, Visual Effects for 1941. It was a team effort on the editing front, with Edward M. Abrams, Don Aron, Dove Honing, Anthony Redman, and Robert F. Shagru contributing to the slicing and dicing. The score was composed by Graham Revel, who wrote the music for action thriller The Saint, crime drama The Negotiator, family flick The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and sci-fi adaptation Aeon Flux. The soundtrack featured songs by Nas, LL Cool J, and Chuck D. The title track, Street Fighter, was written and performed by Ice Cube. It reached number 34 on the top R&B hip-hop albums, and sold over 500,000 copies in the United States. The single Straight to My Feet was performed by MC Hammer and Deion Sanders. Yes, that Deion Sanders. And released exclusively in the United Kingdom, where it peaked at number 57. The runtime is 1 hour 42 minutes. It had a budget of $35 million and grossed just over $99 million at the box office. There were attempts to greenlight a sequel, but those plans never came to fruition. Legendary Entertainment acquired the rights to the franchise and is working on a reboot to be released in 2026. Street Fighter, the animated series, premiered in 1995 and aired for 2 seasons, 26 episodes. It used much of the lore that was established in this movie. On the Ski Index, I give it 3 out of 5 stars. It's more entertaining than most video game adaptations, and knew not to take itself seriously, but at times it was just a little too cutesy. If you've seen Street Fighter and have opinions on the movie, let me know what you think using the hashtag MattWatchThat. Moving right along, each episode, I'm gonna post clips that I think people should watch. It could be movie trailers, music videos, interviews, or something completely random. Search for my YouTube page and there'll be a playlist called Matt Watch That Playback. The Alien franchise has always been one of my favorite series of movies to watch. The original was a brilliant slow burn horror by Ridley Scott that delivers on every level. James Cameron took Aliens in the direction of an action sci-fi hybrid, with Marines facing off against the Xenomorphs. After that, studio interference led to the unsatisfactory Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. Since then, Fox has been trying to figure out what to do with the series. There was a spin-off of Alien vs. Predator films that did well at the box office but didn't appease the fans of either franchise. Ridley Scott came back into the fold with Prometheus, which had the slightest link to the original movie before Alien Covenant made it obvious. But no matter how mediocre the films are, I keep getting sucked back into the franchise every time a new one is announced. The latest is Alien Romulus, a standalone installment in theaters on August 16th, 2024. It takes place between Alien and Aliens when a group of colonists come across a derelict space station. In 2014, the survival horror game Alien Isolation was released, where Ripley's daughter, Amanda, volunteers to board a salvage vessel going to the area where her mother went missing to discover the truth on her whereabouts. It received rave reviews, and it's not hard to see why. I've watched walkthrough videos on YouTube, and it's a tension-filled game that really hasn't been experienced in the movies for a long time. I think my biggest qualms with the Alien franchise is similar to how I feel about Halloween, Friday the 13th, The Nightmare on Elm Street. Once you see the antagonist get defeated, it loses any edge, any fear that you had of the being. So the sequels always feel a bit repetitive, but I'm not sure what else you can do with Aliens. So I'm going to post a couple of clips from the Alien franchise, including the Alien Romulus trailer and the Alien Isolation game trailer. They're all available in the Matt Watch That playback playlist on YouTube. Check it out. Now it's time for the recommendation. Yes, that's the word recommendation with Matt in the middle. I'm going to end each podcast with my own recommendation of a movie or TV series. Today I'm talking about Wreck-It Ralph. It tells the story of Ralph, the heavy-handed villain of fictional Rampage-inspired arcade game Fix-It Felix Jr., who's tired of being mistreated by his 8-bit coworkers and no longer wants to play the bad guy in their story. It stars the voices of John C. Reilly as Ralph, Jack McBrayer as Felix, Sarah Silverman as Vanellope, Jane Lynch as Sergeant Calhoun, and Alan Tudyk as King Candy. It also features the talents of Mindy Kaling, Ed O'Neill, Dennis Haysbert, Adam Carolla, and Horatio Sands. Set in the world of video games, there are cameo appearances by Q*bert, Sonic the Hedgehog, Pac-Man, Bowser, Tapper, and Zangief, as well as many others. It reminds me of when Disney and Warner Brothers teamed up for Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's amazing to see all your favorite characters in one place. It was directed by Rich Moore in his theatrical feature debut. The screenplay was written by Phil Johnston and Jennifer Lee. Now, for a while, I was boycotting Disney. I didn't agree with the strategy of greenlighting all these direct-to-video sequels. It was completely unnecessary, a total money grab. Mulan 2, Tarzan 2, Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch Has a Glitch. I mean, they even did a Brother Bear 2, and the original was a mediocre film. So I felt these rush job movies really tainted the legacy of the original. But starting in 2010, they seemed to turn the corner and began to release some original and imaginative stories. There was Tangled, the hand-drawn Winnie the Pooh. Then you had the monster that was Frozen, Big Hero 6, Zootopia, the animated version of Chinatown for kids, and the catchy musical Moana. This really was, in my opinion, another golden era of Disney animation. Wreck-It Ralph would gross $496.5 million at the box office and was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. That's all for this edition of Matt Watch That. Thanks for listening to me babble. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Matt Seroski. You can subscribe to my YouTube page where I'll post videos and clips from the show. If you have any opinions on what I've discussed or suggestions as to what movie or TV pilot I should see, use the hashtag MattWatchThat on social. Head over to mattseroski.com for all the latest news and updates, and come back next time for the reviews, rants, and randomness. Where Ripley's daughter Amanda volunteers to board a salvage festival. It became one of the biggest selling games and is estimated to have been played by 25. Street Fighter was produced by Capcom.